Okay, so we are reading today, or talking about Jennifer Gillen's TV brand casting, SVOD, and OTT, and Snoop D-O-double-G at Comcast and Disney. From this book, The Franchise Era, Managing Media in the Digital Economy, edited by James Fleury, Brian Hikari Hartzheim, and Stephen Mamber. I think this was a fantastic reading. On a personal level, this is the kind of work that I really enjoy reading, and I think it's because it's simultaneously informative, but really does get to the kind of broader implications and why we should be talking about this sort of thing. And so just to kind of set up the chapter, Gillen is talking about the relationship, right, between these kind of companies and franchise development and management. The book is about, the quote-unquote franchise era, very much in dialogue again with the work of someone like Thomas Schatz, who talks about the franchise blockbuster as really the primary kind of type of film that's coming out of the U.S. at this point. We're all familiar with this. We're all intimately familiar with this. The go-to example and the model that everyone is really trying to follow at this point is Disney Marvel, right? Which, but even just Disney itself, right? Which the chapter is very much about, right? And the point being that this is the sort of direction that the industry is going in. And that others are following. Famously, Warner Brothers, even Universal, right? The Universal Dark Universe that they've been trying with the Dracula film, the Mummy film, and they just can't really get it off the ground. So specifically, we have the Walt Disney Company on one hand. So Gillen is setting up sort of two models of development and management by two of the six conglomerates, right? And the other being Comcast as the parent company, right? NBC, Universal. And specifically, like, the objects that she's looking at are, I want to touch my face, really itches right there. The two objects that she's looking at are sitcoms, right? Or television sitcoms specifically, and how they're used to kind of market in this structure, ABC's Blackish for Walt Disney, and then Parks and Recreation for Comcast NBC. And Gillen is pointing out that these companies or conglomerates are basically doing the same thing, but they're doing them very differently, where this has a much kind of tighter integration, right? Tight integration. And then Comcast NBC Universal has a much looser structure. But the end result, the means of how they get there is different, but the end result is both are trying to kind of, create these sort of, mediascapes that kind of, entice viewers to kind of stay in that sort of world. Like, people love talking about world building, right? They're like, it's the companies that are doing this. With Parks and Recreation, right? So with Blackish, it's Black Panther, and there's kind of like synergy effect. With Parks and Recreation, for Comcast, it was initially like CISO, another defunct platform, which was NBC Universal's streaming video on demand platform, no longer with us, and then Netflix, right? So trying to get viewers onto these platforms and then to stick with them, right? Which was Comcast's over-the-top distribution partner, right? Which gets us back to throttling and the internet providers themselves and their role in all of this. So what is Gillen's argument? Her argument is that the continued viability, right? Let's see. This is on page 182. This is not my book, so I can't mark it up, but I should get a copy of this book. So the viability of sitcoms specifically, right? was dependent on multi-platform distribution, right? So, not just on actual broadcast television, but also other platforms, and transmedia expansion of franchise iterations on multiple platforms. So like for a sitcom like Blackish or Parks and Recreation to survive, it needs to be kind of spread across other platforms, but also kind of linked and networked with other media and other franchises as well. So it's like, Blackish helps promote Black Panther, but Black Panther also helps promote Blackish. It's kind of mutual, right? And that is the secondary function, that it's content promoting other content. And that's why I keep sort of insisting we have to know about the conglomerates, because it's like there's a way in which like you watch Blackish, but you might not watch Black Panther, or you might watch Black Panther, but you might not watch Blackish. You might watch Onward, but you might not watch both. You might watch Star Wars, but you might not watch both. Ultimately, what Gillian is sort of pointing out is like it doesn't matter. Like all the revenue kind of goes back to the Walt Disney Company anyway, right? And that's why again, like these numbers really do matter, right? Where especially, I mean, so here's the big claim that I'll kind of like sort of carefully put on the table for you all today, is that we tend to think that we're very kind of conscious with our spending, and so specifically we're talking about the Walt Disney Company, the stake in ESPN, Pixar, Lucasfilms, Disney, Marvel, and Fox at this point, right? And because there's like a politics of spending. Like let's say I'm unhappy with the decision that one of these companies makes, right? So I'm unhappy with the lack of, let's say, Star Wars is a good one, right? LGBTQ representation in Lucas. So I boycott Lucasfilms and Star Wars by not spending money here, but then I go and see Avengers Endgame and buy a copy of Blu-ray. Money's still going here. Right. What does media conglomeration and conglomeration in general do with this idea of kind of like the politics of spending or conscientious spending or voting with your dollar? That's the question that I really want to kind of pose for all of us. Because I will, and the claim being, I'll just kind of just to augment that question, those two ideas are kind of at odds with each other, right? Or media conglomeration kind of really complicates the notion of the politics of spending is really what I want to talk about. Or partially, I guess, what I want to talk about. So to kind of move on, we'll just add this idea of a transmedia marketing circuit. So I said structure, like the idea of a circuit. What is a circuit? Doing a circuit, right? Circuits that are in all this stuff, right? The way that this is 182 and 183, it's the way that franchise content is structured so that you may start anywhere, but also so that it sends you elsewhere. So it's like, if we think of like a circuit board, right? It's kind of non-linear, so it's like I might watch Blackish or Black Panther or Onward, but there's a way in which it doesn't matter where I start, it's just going to send you to some other point on the circuit, right? That's really what this chapter is about, right? Okay, so